top section on page Pay. And the line that we are starting from begins with the word berosh. And the Rebbe is using the section of the human body, head, body, and feet, to understand how things are in worlds. That just as we discussed that in koiches hanefesh, chochma, bina, v'das, chochma and bina particularly that we discussed, there is a reduction of oil hanefesh. Where in chochma there is greater influence in the oil hanefesh than in bina. The similar thing is in oilums. Now there are three worlds, and each one differs in terms of the oil halakhi that there is in there. And the mashal for that is that we have in the person we have the head, the body, and the feet. We pointed out before we talk about koiches, and then we go back and talk about worlds, and be speaking of this similar concept. The difference is that koiches are individual koiches. Each one has its own the distinct function, whereas world is a complete conglomeration of a whole structure. And thus the head, the body, and the feet are not isolated, are not narrowly defined koiches, but rather they're encompassing a whole, a full spectrum of a being. In the head there is the moichin, there's the brain, and in the brain there is all the koiches of the brain. And similarly in the heart, as we're going to discuss now. And the feet also we discussed. So we're talking about now, saying that the head, there is much greater influence of the oil hanefesh than it is in the other parts of the body. So, right. Okay, the line begins with the word berosh. Behoyikar beroyach sheberosh. That the principle Gilu Eir HaNefesh is in the head, and in that itself, the principle is in the moyach sheberosh, in the moyach that's in the head. Then there is another phase of the inner of the Gilu Eir HaNefesh, which is in the heart, and it's called the arusa de lieba. That is directly recognized in the heart, and what we're saying is that in the heart there is also, just like in the brain, there is the initial conceptualization, like the moyach conceptualization, without any provocation. The moyach recognizes certain truths. In the heart also there is that aspect, and it's called the arusa de lieba. The AYIN arusa, okay, in the middle of that line, the AYIN arusa de lieba shuhu b'lev davke. The AYIN of arusa de lieba, arusa, the word arusa means the desire, the will in the heart. And as we explained, that this is not a desire that is a kind of a desire for some kind of an experience. It is rather a recognition of the significance of a certain truth, and as a result of that, the heart is drawn to it. So the word arusa should be more correctly, perhaps, translated as a draw. Pardon me, the draw of the heart.
Arusa, like air, awake, arousal, awakened, awake. Hit or a root, air, awaken. No.
No. No.
What do you mean by
Soirus is an excitement. This is not an excitement. This is an inherent appreciation of certain value.
That's what you mean by draw?
Draw. And these are things which in fact, which are, so to speak, godly gifts to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And thus they have godly truths in them. There's no way that we can understand and say it. Seichel is careful with that noise, okay? Seichel can only understand things in some kind of a process, a beginning and a middle and an end. But the godly gift of the nefesh bypasses this whole process. It's a divine presence in the person. Which is called the arusa de lieba. The heart is a living organ, but it's not just an organ. There's life in the heart. This life has a definition, has a draw, has an interest. Not because of certain provocations, but a dynamic interest. This is what it is. This is what it stands for. As I said, in Seichel it is very, very difficult. Certainly to describe it in words is virtually impossible. But because that each one of us has Seichel, has a living nefesh, therefore, by speaking, by alluding something, everyone can find it, so to speak, within his own experience, within his own sense of the truth. That to start it off, I should see the difference. There's a profound difference between saying, between the common, the worldly, the Darwinian model, survival. Everything wants to survive. Survival implies the protection against destruction. In other words, the whole process, the whole desire is based on the fact that he is being attacked, that there is a precariousness in his existence, and he's constantly providing for his survival. The will to live in the nefesh is not due to precariousness, but it's a dynamic will because there's a truth in it. not because of being threatening, being threatened. This is reflected in the heart. It's called the arusa, the lieba. Where does that come from, this arusa, the lieba? That's why I said this is a divine gift. It is something that you have to understand. God created the world. God created the human being. And He gave the human being a true presence. What does it stand for? He is not a completely immobile and insignificant entity on this until you prick it. No, he is the dynamic reality of the world itself. So this arusa, the lieba, interesting, it is present in the heart rather than in the mind. The mind also has phenomenal qualities, dynamic qualities. But as we explained on Friday, arusa, the lieba, this unprovoked, true desire, true recognition is in the heart rather than in the mind. Why so? So we explained, the mind, by its very nature, has a tendency to identify what it sees, or what it identifies, what it sees. Identify means give it meaning. What is it about? Once you say what is it about, it becomes based on your own understanding. It is not the truth itself that is observable, but it's your take of it. The heart doesn't have that tendency. The heart relates to the truth as it is from the truth perspective itself. Doesn't need to be explained what this is about. Thus, the heart is capable of relating to the element of truth in a truer way than even the brain. Surely, to make sense of it and to take this further down into practice, it's the brain. And to affect other things, it's the brain. But the essential element is in the heart.
Like, as you say, it has more beetle.
Has more beetle.
It does.
In this
regard.
So Rebbe discusses this briefly. V'inyan arusa the lieba. Okay, we are on the line when it begins berosh. So the Rebbe first said that the iker chayes hanefesh, gilui oyer hanefesh is in the brain. But then there is also arusa the lieba. V'inyan arusa the lieba shuhu b'lev dafke, which is in the lev dafka. Dafka means exclusively. Why is it the lev dafka explained? Because the heart, the mind, immediately begins to investigate what is it that I see. It doesn't accept what it sees dynamically. The heart does. Therefore, the heart can take this truth more purely than even the mind. It's called arusa the lieba. So the arusa the lieba shuhu b'lev dafke, which is in the heart. Hine yesh b'zeh beis fanim. Behold, in this arusa the lieba there are beis fanim, two modes, two manners. How arusa the lieba surfaces. Ha'alev, the first. The first means the starting point, the lower element. That which comes also, thank you, as a result of his bonus of consideration, of reflection, and delving in the moich. When one is misboinen, one delves in and focuses in on that which the moich recognizes. As we said, the moich by nature is misboinen. What is it? Let me give a very simple illustration of this. I speak always of the sky. The sky is a phenomenal presentation that is beyond definition. It encompasses the entire globe, the entire reality, and yet we don't accept it as that. We immediately begin to focus in what is it made of? What's its function? The truth is that its function and its effect is way beyond anything that we understand. But our tendency in the moich is, what is it? The moich does not have the capacity, does not have the willingness to live up to the truth as it is being shown to you. I want to know what I get. The heart does have that capability.
You just said it was the result to his bonus. This bonus comes from the moya.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what the Rebbe explained. Even though the arusa the lieba on the lower level comes also from his bonus b'moyach. The moyach clearly is the higher part, the higher organ in the person than the heart. The arusa lieba comes in the first level of arusa lieba comes through his bonus, which is in the moyach. Except Rak, however, that his bonus in the moyach that brings out or reveals Ru'usa de lieba, his bonus he is behoir in soif shalamaylo mehishtalshus. His bonus is focusing in to the oir in soif that's above hishtalshus.
Which is what you refer in your emotional on the sky.
Yeah, sort of right. In other words, what does it mean above hishtalshus? Above hishtalshus means a process from one stage to another stage to another stage. One bringing about the other. Above hishtalshus, what's above hishtalshus? This is called oil in soif. Oil in soif means the following. I'll try to give us a little bit of a relation to it. Again, we are talking about not because of our experiences, but because of the gift of intellect that the Rebbe gave us. So we have to employ, the dynamic quality of our intellect. What does Oir Ein Sof mean? Immediately when we start saying Oir Ein Sof, the infinite light, we immediately start saying, how big is it? Okay, it's infinite, but how big is it? And then we are smart enough, wise enough to recognize, no, he doesn't go into that category at all. Anything that is measurable is never Ein Sof. You cannot create an infinite number of pennies. There's no possibility. If it has components, it cannot be Ein Sof. Oyer Ein Sof means that there is that it encompasses everything, but and has everything. It's Ein Sof, but from the Oyer Ein Sof perspective, not from creating the components and the structure. This is why it's called L'mayla Mishtalshelus, above Ishtalshelus. The whole world is there. Not only the whole world, but all the worlds. But but not through the process of Ishtalshelus. It's there because of the Oyer Ein Sof quality and Ein Sof status level. I was thinking hard, trying to find in our Masholim a means to recognize the senior. So I thought, again, the requirement is that we should think with our open mind rather than with our hands. We say that there is a home, Odom Shein Bayis in the Odom. Odom Shein Bayis, if a person does not have a bias, he's not an Odom. In other words, bias is a primary definition of what an Odom is. And we discuss this a lot, what's so important about a bias. Now, before we go, skipping that at this moment, what is a bias? Tell me one thing that a bias is not for a human being. A bias does not consist of all the furnishings and all the functions that a person has identified with. A bias is that which gives a person a place in the world. And it encompasses all of the human thought process and all the human recognition of reality. That's what Odom Shein Bayis in the Odom. Any Bayis is not that is not comfortable. Any Odom. Odom is a godly creation. As such, it has a divine truth about its presence, as we all know. The Bayis on the Chitzon Yisrael level represents that truth. If any Bayis, he's not really a full-fledged Odom. Now, what does the bias encompass? As we said many times, the minute a person has a bias, chairs and tables and refrigerators and all kinds of different amenities begin to surface. Whatever you bring into the house does not capture fully what a house is. There is no to capture it, no way to capture it. And yet the bias is all of these things. But it's not all of these things from the perspective of Hishtalshelus, that one brings a rather about another, but from the perspective of Ein Sof, of the Ein Sof quality of the person, which is a divine gift, a divine spark in the person. That life is real, and anything you put in the house, it belongs there.
Is the bias a mashal association with the Oyer Ein Sof?
Oyer Ein Sof, on the human level, it's like Oyer Ein Sof. The house, when you talk about a house, you're not talking about hishtalshelus, meaning you're not talking about what am I going to do with the house.
We got into this distinction to illustrate that this is bonus that is on the Or Shel L'mayla Oyer Ein Sof.
Right. L'mayla mihishtalshelus.
Which is like saying focusing on the purity of home per se, stripped of any.
That's
Land
if
estate.
I'm using the home as a moshel.
Yes.
That's the only thing I could see that has that level of influence on the person, a level of truth on the person. Any other.
Right, and that is what is the gateway to arusa de lieba.
So this also is recognized in Arusa de lieba, but it's a lower level in Arusa de lieba.
All right, there were two.
That's right. We're not there for the other level. Right now, this is Arusa de lieba that comes also to his volumes.
And is this to say that the heart gains a sense of, call it the truth that the mind is perceiving, or that the heart leads the way? I mean, we did start with.
One second. The heart does not gain from these volumes. The heart is able to identify the significance of what you misboinen in. And only the heart is able to identify it.
In a way, more than the mind itself is.
More than the mind itself. Like we said before, the mind immediately begins to think in terms of structure.
The mind's the one that engages in the hisbonenut, but the heart senses the significance of that.
When the mind is misboinen, in oirin sev shalom hishtalsuz, that's not a mind thought process.
It's a heart process.
It's not a process. But the mind is able to be misboinen in that which is above mind. Like we're saying, again, the sky. The minute you start considering, no, leave it. This is my garbage.
I was afraid it was
Yeah.
water.
The minute it begins to identify things, you start identifying things as individual things, but that's not what it really is. Oir ein soif shelamayla mishtasos means, again, it's not a measured ein soif. In other words, an infinite number of units. Oir ein soif means that which encompasses everything by virtue of what it is. The marshal that we have for it, I thought, was the home. The home is what gives a person a place in the world in a most dynamic and a most profound manner. And it cannot be fully defined. What does it provide for the person? The only way to describe it is what not.
Okay. And you may think that sense is gained is in the moyach, but really we're articulating that the significance of home is in the heart.
Okay, so here is a challenge for all of us. The mind is what recognizing that there is such a thing as a home. It's the mind that recognizes. But who identifies with it? Who actually appreciates it? To appreciate it is the heart. The heart is really experiences it. The mind doesn't. The mind identifies its presence, but the appreciation of it and living with it, that's in the heart.
And that's like saying Ratzon, or that's.
Yes, it's
is
like
like-
it's like the rods. So it comes. The mind is the one that presents it, that shows it, but who really has the capacity to relate to it, say, this is who I am, this is what I'm, is the heart.
Rabbi PALTIEL. Hello?
Oh yeah, hello. Good morning. Yes, sir.
With, by contrast with other things, that is what is within Seder Shpashlis. The mind not only identifies it, but appreciates it.
The mind is capable of fully understanding it.
The mind what?
Fully understanding it. What is a structure? Let's take a very simple thing which we always talk about. The mind recognizes what a table is. Oh, a table! I know what it is exactly. I tell you what it is. It's a board with 4 legs, and I know how it came to be. But the dynamic element, the total element, of what a table is, that is, who feels comfortable sitting by the table? That's the heart. You calm down.
So all these things that we've talked about what a table really is, apart from its parts, the real appreciation of that is also in arusa the lieba.
That's right. That's right.
This is the lower level of arusa.
That's right. The mind represents it. The mind is capable of identifying it. But to truly live with it, that's in the heart.
Is it off topic to ask why doesn't Chokhmah have the related?
So I'll explain, because anything in the mind, it's very difficult. The mind will immediately begin to identify aspects. What is it about? Even Chokhmah. Okay, since you asked, I don't want to lose everybody. Everybody understands this question. It's a very profound question. I pointed out many times. See if we can follow this.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, he says, even Chokhmah cannot identify with this Indian, with the Aryan Seif, with this arusa the lieba element. It identifies it, but not to relate to it, not to live with it. L'chayra Chokhmah is capable of doing it. And the answer is no. Chokhmah also immediately begins to identify what is its content, what does it mean, what does it stand for. If I may, I want to present something which we presented many times before. Chokhmah in Chassidus is compared to sight. And we explained many times, sight is unique among all the talents, all the capabilities of a human being, in that sight goes dynamically to the reality. There's no process in sight. You see from here to a mile away, not going through 5,000 feet, but you go directly to the destination. Nothing intervenes. If it's there, I see it. Because it's there, not because I came to it. There's no process. Right? So therefore, Chokhmah is as dynamic as the heart, you would think. But there's one caveat there, and that is like in sight. Sight is so dynamic. In sight, we are conscious of the fact that I'm seeing it. It's an active state. Why do we have that active state, a sense? Because I can close my eyes and not see. Therefore, it means that when I do see, it is something which I see, I recognize the beginning, when that starts, where it comes from.
So as pure as it is, there's an activity. That's the point here.
There is a source to it, a beginning to it.
And I guess we're going to say the heart is not like that.
That's right.
So,
Go ahead.
so you can close your eyes and not see. Can you close your heart and not feel?
No. That's exactly what I'm pointing out. The heart does not have that. That's not dependent on the experience of what it experiences.
We have the possible take away my stony heart. Inside my heart. Right? It's hard.
Okay. all together. What is the implication of the word stony heart?
That it's closed off. It's closed.
Why do you call it a stone?
I'm feeling.
Not feeling.
Why did you call it a closed heart? Why a stone?
Some feelings.
Because what is the most undeniable, what is the most fundamental presence in the world? A stone. It's indestructible. The heart, when it becomes stony, it becomes stony. In other words, it relates to the bottommost of existence, rather than some kind of oil, some kind of a meaning. And this is where we get misled. The stone, that's the fundamental building block of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to say it can get misguided but not blinded.
That's right. That, there itself already you see that heart is different than mind. It's a stony heart, not a dark heart. In Indian it's called dark. I don't see anything. Okay, so let's get back inside. There's his bonus that brings about arusa de lieba. In other words, there's his bonus that brings to the person such a thing that his bonus itself can't fully relate to, fully appreciate. Which is one of the things that we constantly pointing out. We understand something, but we want to understand it so fully that we lose sight of what we understand. Because that is a tendency of the brain. If I see it, how come I see it? What happened before I saw it? But then there is this in a divine gift. It's called the arusa de lieba. The heart identifies with the truth directly. In the heart, there is implanted in us the sense of the value, of the fundamental value of life. And if you ask the heart, what's so important about it? He look at you and says, you're out of your mind. It's godliness itself. It's AYIN safe. Shumal mishtal shums. So the mind brings it to the fore, brings it to the awareness of it. But when it's misbein in itself, shulamala mishtal shums. Oh, I'm afraid I have to interrupt. Okay, we covered about a half a line. I have to go. I didn't go to mikveh yet. Okay, so have a great day.
Amen. Rabbi, you see that among